now. The meeting is being live streamed. Let's go.
So we're like live right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's setting up. It says setting up meeting, redirecting now. Okay,
right, we'll just
and
tell
now
me
meeting is being live streamed. Let's go.
So we're like live right now?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay,
Why does it
so can I share? Can you post this on social media? Can I give this to you?
Mm-hmm.
I have like a million pages open right now.
Okay.
This this is the link for YouTube.
Okay.
Maybe we should post this also on LinkedIn, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. I'm going to post at the Incubator. Save. Done. We are live on YouTube. Okay, so I'm going to post that. Yes, continue. Okay.
Are you like muted or are we like on YouTube right now?
We are on YouTube right now. I muted. Can you check whether, actually, let me see. If I were to open this on my thing, let's see.
Yeah, I have it open. Oh, now you're watching.
Let's see. What if I did this here? But let's see if it plays.
Quite a delay.
Yeah, it's working. If I were to. Okay. Whew. All right, so we're live on YouTube. There's only 2 participants so far. This is a slam dunk.
But I logged off, so it must be somebody else.
No, it's just you and me. I'm kidding.
Okay. Can you open a chat?
I didn't open the chat on YouTube because I thought that it would be too hard to keep track of this. What do you think?
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, somebody is trying to enter the webinar. Should we let them in?
No, not yet.
Not yet. I mean, it's going to be fun when we're going to realize that there's like one person for this webinar.
Well, it's Memorial Day, but it'll be stored.
What's that?
It's Memorial Day.
I know. But do people really have anything better to do than compared to what we have to say here? I mean, this is like peak interesting innovation, you know?
You mean like spend time with their family?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, yes, you should mention the coordinator situation. Yeah. I don't know. Coordinator is probably a bad word.
No, I know.
Okay, so I'm going to close this. So YouTube is good. Oh boy, buddy. Hmm. Ngok new. Let's see. I mean, it's
Hold
going to be
on,
really awkward. It's going
What?
to be really awkward if there's only one person. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, but the point is that it's recorded, so we have it.
Is it recorded? I don't know if I'm recording. I mean, it's on YouTube.
You should
I guess
record. It's going to be.
I mean, I
on
guess
YouTube.
it's recorded on YouTube. Yeah.
All of chatter here. Hold on a second. I'm gonna holler at my family.
Oh, I'm going to open the waiting room, Daphna.
The floodgates.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, let's see. Hello, everybody. We're going to let everybody connect. It is 9 o'clock and we're going to start very soon. We're going to let a few minutes for people to shuffle in. Happy Memorial Day to everybody. Miriam is here. Hey, Miriam.
Hi, Ben. Hi, Daphna.
Hi. All right, I hope everybody can hear us. I'm gonna start occupying the air just a little bit so that we can make sure that people are not wondering whether we're muted or not. This is a lot of fun to be able to do this little webinar. We are actually really looking to, in terms of our objectives, I guess, really to just go over some of the things that we're working on. I think we've been very blessed to have some support and gather some momentum in the past 12 months to really work on a numerous initiatives. And we're very excited to talk a little bit about what these initiatives are, but also trying to give a bit of a perspective as to how people can contribute to the incubator and what are some of the opportunities that are really available at this time and in the upcoming months for anybody that is interested in either innovation in education, innovation in healthcare delivery. I think we're hoping that this webinar can maybe be a bit of an inspiration. It is recorded, it is on YouTube, so we're hoping that whoever was not able, if you have to hop off or anything of that sort, then people will be able to rewatch whatever parts they missed. I'm Ben. I'm one of the hosts of the Incubator, and I'm co-hosting with Daphna today. Daphna, how are you?
I'm doing great. I just wanted to add, we have the chat open if you're on the webinar. And if you've got questions, ask away and we'll try to take turns moderating the chat.
Yeah. I just want to say that there was a a question whether there was a question whether to open the chat for YouTube, and the decision was made not to do so because we're not really going to be able to man both places. So we're going to try to keep up with the chat on Zoom. If you are on YouTube and you want to participate, all the links to the Zoom call that is open are on the Incubator page. So you can go on the-incubator.org, and on the front page, you should be able to see all the information to actually join. This is also very informal. So if at any point we can obviously take questions at the end, but if you have a question about something specific, because we're going to move from one initiative to the next, please interrupt and let's have a concrete discussion. We're hoping that this webinar should not take too long of a time. We're hoping that maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes at the most, depending on when we start. And we'll be available at the end, Daphna and I, to answer any questions you guys may have or to talk about any ideas and so on. And I guess I just wanted to also give a warm welcome to Dr. Mariam Bakhtiari, who is joining us. She's the co-host of the Incubator podcast in Iran, and she'll be talking to us a little bit about her experience joining the team and what this has been like for her. But yeah, all right, we're going to give people a few more seconds, but I think, maybe 9:05.
I mean, we've never been live. This is kind of fun for us too.
We've been talking about it. And yet now we're testing the tech side of things. So that's exciting. All right, Daphna, it's 9:05. There's already more than 10 people already on the call, and I want to be mindful of everybody's time. So I'm going to keep bringing people in. Do you want to get us started maybe?
Sure. I'd love to. So Ben started with introductions a little bit earlier. We are the co-hosts of the English version of the Incubator podcast. And the Incubator is growing, and that's what we're here to talk about today. We're kind of more than a podcast. We're kind of now an umbrella organization for a variety of projects that we hope some of you who are already coming onto the call or listening to us later on YouTube might consider joining us for. So a lot of people ask about the kind of inception story for the Incubator. So we like to share it when we're talking about what's new, what are we doing, where did this all come from? So Ben and I started working together in the summer of 2019. And this slide really just shows that we were in the throes of new attendinghood. I had to move across the state. We were balancing, our young families, and our spouses are professionals. So, how do you navigate that? And then this kind of this weight of having all of this new responsibility as a new attending. So, that first year is kind of difficult, no matter what the circumstances are. But then in 2020, we know that kind of the world changed altogether. So obviously we were in the midst of the COVID pandemic, just kind of learning about what the pandemic was going to mean, going into lockdowns, and then obviously those lasting much longer than we anticipated. And we had some other stressors as well. So those of us who were taking the neonatal perinatal boards that cycle had that disrupted. So that was delayed. And then Ben ended up taking his boards near the end of August. August? When did you end up taking them? In August?
I think it was in August. You're right.
And then I delayed even further because I just didn't feel like I could tackle all of that at once. So we had the stressors of kind of studying, stopping studying, restudying for the boards. We also were in a position that is not uncommon in medicine, where our group was undergoing new contract renegotiations. And this was just incredibly stressful. You know, we found a place that we liked, we found a group that we were happy with. And instead of kind of just like settling in, we were really at this place where we didn't know what our futures were going to look like. So needless to say, this was a very, very stressful time. And, you know, especially given the restraints of the pandemic, we were feeling kind of isolated, even from our own colleagues in our own group. And we also felt like, you know, we had both made individual goals to stay quote unquote up to date with the literature so that we could provide the best care for our patients. And just with the way modern medicine is, and then on top of all of these new stressors and homeschooling and, you know, all these things going on, we really felt like we were unable to keep up with the literature. And so at some point in time, Ben comes over and he says, you know, I want to start a podcast. And I was like, that's a good idea. Like, I would listen to a podcast about neonatology, and I think you should do that. And I didn't understand that he was inviting me to come along on this wild journey with him. And
without taking away the credit from Daphna, she rarely says no to anything.
Right.
Is always
so
game.
He knew I was going to say yes, despite not having, you know, I have a voice better suited for like cartoons than podcasts, but I said yes, and we went for it, and we just got started. And basically, Ben really was of the mindset that like we would get together, we'd review the literature, and we'd at least be doing that for our patients in our group. And if a few people listened and got something out of it, then maybe they'd take better care of their patients, and that maybe they'd feel a little bit less isolated also. So the goals of the podcast were really twofold. To improve access to information, to have an opportunity to hear about the latest literature that was timely, that was efficient, and that was really kind of equitable. So obviously, getting onto every journal is difficult, especially given the paywalls associated with medical literature. So we started with the journal clubs, and we felt like this was already kind of reducing our feelings of isolation because we were just able to get together and chat about clinical care. But then Ben really had this vision. I was really all in on the journal clubs. Ben really had this vision about sharing coffee with other neonatologists, and that we could get some other neonatologists to join us and just talk about their lives. So over time, we got started, and we had really a much better response to the podcast than we ever could have hoped for. It was obvious that there was a gap, and that people in our community were looking for this sort of venture. And so our overall vision has changed a little bit, but it's still pretty much the same, that we are looking for this growth of a virtual network that really enhances idea sharing, open collaboration, with the end goal of improving patient care that represents all of the people in our community and in the communities that we serve.
So over time, I think the vision for the podcast evolved. And what's been interesting about the evolution of the podcast is that we quickly realized that our original goal, which one of the reasons why it is called the Incubator, is that we're hoping to incubate some of the new voices and the talent that it resides within our community and bring those voices to the largest number of people. So what we've been able to to do is create new series and create new avenues to highlight different aspects of the people and the care that is provided to neonate. One of them is this series called The Giants of Neonatology. We thought that we have the unique opportunity in our very young field of neonatology to still have the chance to speak and ask questions to our mentors and to the pioneers of our specialty. And so we started this series where as frequently as we can get them recorded, we try to talk to people like Dr. Wiley Carlo, Dr. Fenneroff. We spoke to Dr. Polin, we spoke to Dr. Benkalari. There are a few more episodes coming up this year, and that has been a very successful series. Another series that we've spearheaded this year is sort of these mini series. We felt like Daphna and I going to conferences, you often get the schedule and you always want to attend different things. And there's always this sense of being pulled in various directions, not really being able to dedicate your time to certain areas. And we thought, what if the podcast tried to fill that gap where we try to have little mini conferences where over the course of 4 to 5 episodes, which ends up being about like 5 to 6 hours, we actually address a topic in more depth with a variety of guests. And this is our first series this year was on advocacy in the NICU. We're trying to work with really talented people. I mean, in this case, Dr. Shadol Shah has been instrumental in making this series happen. And he was able to actually connect us to the various guests that came on. And you can tell from the interviews that these are really phenomenal physicians, phenomenal advocates, because they were not all physicians. And so these are some of the things that we're doing. We have a few more series that are scheduled for the rest of the year. And this is something that we're seeing a tremendous response from the community in terms of a need where it's been really difficult for our physicians to really find the time, even when conferences do happen, even if we sign up for the videos after the conference is over, it's still very hard, in our opinion, to find the time to sit at a desk and to watch the videos of the conference that you missed. And we thought maybe the podcast can serve a different purpose there, where you can actually listen to it in the car, you can listen to it on your walk, and you don't really have to visually be attentive, and you can actually go about doing other tasks. So we're very excited about that. The idea of this work has really been this work has been rewarded, I think, by the community recently, as we've seen the podcast really climb to the top of the charts in the United States, especially in the medical podcast category. And I think that's a reflection of really the need and how the neonatal community is craving more information, is craving information, evidence-based practices. And so that only encourages us to do more. So one of the avenues that we're exploring is obviously having the podcast available in multiple languages. And this is an idea that actually I have to credit Daphna for, because very early on, she was actually of the opinion that we should provide especially the journal clubs, where we go over the latest evidence-based practices in other languages. And to try to say this plainly, it's very, very difficult to actually outline a framework where we can actually do this well. And there's been a lot of trial and error. And what we found over the years has been now that these podcasts are only as successful as the people who are hosting them or the people who are taking them on. So this initiative really started with the Portuguese and Spanish podcast. The Portuguese podcast is Dr. Gonzalez de Oliveira in Brazil, who is taking on this initiative. And then the Spanish version of the podcast has been mostly a translation, a direct translation hosted by medical students. And recently we've been really fortunate to have the podcast now being co-hosted by Dr. Carolina Michel. I think she's recording actually her first episode right after this webinar. But we are looking, for example, for another co-host on the Spanish podcast. The French podcast is hosted by Dr. Gabriel Altit from Montreal and by Dr. Flora Yazigi from Baltimore. I enjoy just getting on the recording with them. They're two very smart and very fun physicians. I get to learn a lot from them, so I'm on those recordings as well. And most recently, we've had the honor and the privilege of having the podcast be available in Farsi, recorded from Iran by Dr. Bakhtiari and her co-host Aylar. But what's interesting about this is I wanted, maybe Mariam, you were on the call with us. I was hoping that maybe you could talk a little bit about how that process was for you in terms of the idea germinating in your head and then you actually getting to the point where episodes are actually recorded and released.
Okay, so do you have my voice, Ben? Is it okay?
Yeah.
So hi again, dear Ben. Hi, Daphna. Hi, everyone who's listening. I'm extremely excited to be here with you today to share actually my journey with the incubator. So my story is actually a bit, so when I say my story, I mean Incubator Farsi story. So our story is a bit different than your guys. So well, I'm not a neonatologist. I'm just a pediatrician, but I do have a huge passion for neonatology and neonatal neurology specifically. And I tend to do the fellowship in near future. So I always had this idea to have this podcast to share recent updates in the field. So I'm not just talking about neonatology. I was thinking about pediatrics while I was a resident. So I always thought about this podcast to share recent updates, talk about recent publications, and well, to have exactly some kind of material like the thing that you guys are doing, but I never had the opportunity to do that. And it was about last year, I think you guys were at the episode 70, that I came across a post by you, Ben, on LinkedIn about the post that you guys have recently published. I jumped onto the website and I listened to the podcast, and I was actually really blown away with the quality and how it was so awesome and so cool, and how it was just what I was looking for. And the conversation and actually the style of the podcast was actually what was most interesting for me. So you guys were not just talking and reading and sharing or just reading the article. You guys had a conversation, had a friendly conversation, and you talked about it. You were not going into very detail, which I was really appreciative of. But it was interesting to listen to like in 15 minutes about an article, what it is going to say. And then if I was interested, I would go through and read the rest of the paper. So I listened to your podcast for about the next 30 episodes. And I don't know what happened one night. I think I was drunk or something. I decided to send you guys an email to say that I'm extremely excited about this project. I wanted to thank you guys for all the effort that you guys are doing. And then that I said that I would really love to join your team. I exactly remember that the topic of the email was actually love to join your team, so that I wanted to grasp your attention that I'm really excited about this project. And you guys actually were extremely supportive. You immediately responded with amazing kindness, and we had a Zoom call and we talked about everything. And well, after one Zoom call and talking and getting to know each other, we actually started the fundamentals of the Farsi podcast. So you guys told me about the things that you guys are looking for in a podcast, what you think is good, what you think is better to do in the content, what Incubator project is actually going to do. And then we discussed what can I bring into the table and what can I do for the Incubator Farsi. And after that, it was just it flew, it was just, we started recording. I actually asked one of my friends, Aylar. She was supposed to be here today, but I'm guessing she had another meeting or something that she couldn't attend. But I asked my friend Aylar to join me in this process, to help me in this. And then we started recording, and everything from there was way out of our expectation, because, well, when we're talking about different languages in this podcast, what I think is most important is that crossing the language barrier for audience. So the main point of these kind of podcasts is, when you're talking about like a summary of an article, is to use the times, for example, when you're doing grocery, when you're doing your home chores, or for example, while you're driving, shopping, or these stuff. So if the podcast is presented in your mother tongue, it is in your actual language, it will be much more accessible for the audience, much more easier to listen to. And I'm guessing that's what happened to Incubator Farsi. And with our podcast, we had a huge, actually the response that we got from our audiences was actually really huge. We hit 700 downloads by 2 episodes, which is actually a huge record for ourselves, I believe. And yeah, we're actually releasing our 3rd episode tomorrow.
That's exciting. I think Mariam is describing really what the vision for the incubator in the future, especially the podcast, is, which is that we would like to see the podcast be made available in other languages, in other areas of the world. And that starts with motivated individuals like Mariam who are really ready to take this on. And as she's describing, the process to initiate contact and to initiate this collaboration is very low friction. And what Daphna and I are really proud of is that we've been able to create a framework that is easily deployable to other people, so that recording, releasing, and really the production aspect of the podcast is made very, very easy. And so I think from that standpoint, we're really hopeful to see the podcast grow, especially towards the East and Asia, and the goal really being so that we can make the podcast in as many languages, available in as many languages as possible. And we're hoping that with that, we're going to be able to showcase and really put at the forefront the quality individuals and work being done by incredible neonatologists, not just in the US, not just in English-speaking countries, or not just in the countries of these 5 spoken by these 5 languages, but in other areas as well, whether it is in China, whether it is in Japan, whether it is in India. And that to us is quite exciting. Okay, so Daphna, you want me to talk about the community? Yeah?
Sure.
Okay, so one of the aspects of the podcast is really to actually, what we've noticed is an unintended consequence of the podcast is that there's really a community that was created around the podcast. And what we've seen was that this community is global. And we've noticed a tremendous response to the podcast, but we've noticed a tremendous willingness of the community to engage with one another and to communicate effectively with one another. This is most clearly seen on social media, and we can see that the representation, this is just our analytics of our Twitter followers on Twitter. And that just goes to show that there's really an opportunity through various platforms to communicate with a large group of neonatologists and neonatal providers. We were at the inception of creating this now famous hashtag on Twitter called NeoTwitter. And we're seeing that when we put our community together, the number of people that we are touching is quite incredible. This is data from August 2022, when the hashtag was maybe a year old, and we're seeing that on average, we get more than about 3 million impressions every week by using this hashtag alone. And that alone is something that is quite incredible and gives you the potential of how, as a community, we can engage with one another. What the power of this community on social media has been towards augmenting the work being done. As we've said, our goal is only to augment the work being done by really incredible researchers and neonatologists. You can see here from a recent paper that was published on the hemodynamic screening approach to PDA by the University of Iowa. We posted this tweet on April 19th, and whether you know of the numbers that are associated with the downloads of articles as they are published from the publishers, it's quite incredible that on social media alone, from our small account, we're able to get 23,000 impressions, which means that 23,804 people actually looked at this paper. I think this is another opportunity where the incubator can help augment the voice of researchers. If you are, no matter where you are working, we're always very interested in showcasing the work being done outside the US and internationally. I think this is another great opportunity beyond the podcast. And again, this is another post by our friend Atul Malhotra, who really highlights this point that through social media, the posts are augmented and we get feedback. The authors get feedback right away, and there's actually very constructive and ongoing discussions being had on social media. Another way that the incubator is growing, and another way is to foster this collaboration, is by offering other opportunities to access evidence-based practices. And one of them is our recent podcast called the Neonatology Review Podcast. This is a podcast that, again, Daphna should be credited for the idea. It started in around March 2022. That was the podcast. That was when the boards were being administered. So about January, we decided that maybe we should have a separate podcast that doesn't so much review the latest evidence, but actually reviews the core concepts of neonatology in order to prepare individuals for the neonatology boards. Obviously, we thought that the best way to do this effectively was to collaborate with exceptional educators. And so to us, the book that we all have used and are still using are the Neonatology Review books by Dr. Brodsky and Martin from Harvard Medical School. And so we reached out to Dr. Brodsky and Martin and said, hey, can we partner up where we use the content of the Neonatology Review book to actually draft short episodes that are released about every other week for people learning to preparing for the neonatology boards. And to date, we have about over 700 trainees listening to this podcast worldwide. And I think these numbers are increasing, especially as the next board examinations in the US are coming up in less than 12 months. And so we are very excited about this podcast, and we're actually opening, there's an opportunity obviously to be part of this journey. And the way to do so is actually to, if anyone is interested in maybe presenting a specific topic that is relevant to board examinations, again, like Miriam described, you can send us an email and we'd be happy to schedule something so that you can actually present this to this large audience. And again, these are opportunities that are just like a grand rounds lecture that should be sought after, and that could be put on a resume, I think.
Well, and I think that Ben just highlights that we never intended to be kind of a standalone organization separate from the other organizations that support trainees or early neonatologists or mid-career neonatologists. We just wanted to, again, amplify those voices. So part of that is this collaboration with the National Organization of Program Directors and with TCAN through the AAP to bring on trainees and early career neos to talk about their area of expertise on the Board Review podcast. So we're always looking for more hosts.
And I think what you'll see in the future is that a little bit like a TV station where you have different shows at different time of the day, you will see that the Incubator podcast will have different segments. We introduced most recently a segment with the evidence-based neonatology team on social media, where they present their commentary to what they refer to as the article of the month. And we're working potentially with the Vermont Oxford Network as well. We're really hoping to create segments and episodes that highlight these organizations as well. So I think Daphne is absolutely right. I think that's the future of our collaboration. In order to make this collaboration even more seamless, the Incubator is working on a mobile application called the Neonatal Network. This is an application that will be available for free on the Google Play Store and on the iOS Store. We're hoping that the app will be released in the fall of this year. And the idea of the application is really to create a bit like a Slack app where there will be different channels and where neonatologists and neonatal providers can communicate with one another in a safe and effective manner. The point of the app also is that the safety features have been enhanced to actually make it HIPAA compliant, so that there's actually an opportunity for providers to have meaningful interactions about both patient care, research, all the while not really being too fearful of being on a public platform like Twitter, for example. We're very excited about this. We're really hoping that many people contribute to this app, and we can't wait to share it with you guys.
We also knew, we wanted the podcast to serve as a way to support, neonatal healthcare professionals. But we know that a lot of our community is still invested in the humanities, and that the humanities can certainly help us mitigate some of the difficult times, the moral distress, the burnout that we're seeing in the medical community. So we knew that we wanted to do something that would support healthcare professionals in that way. But we also knew that we had kind of an obligation to support families in some way. And so this outreach, NICU, A Life in Between, really came from our desire to support families. But in doing so, we realized how much it was also supporting healthcare professionals. And so our vision for NICU, A Life in Between is that we would bring a professional photographer, Rick Adoti, whose organization Positive Exposure really is his goal was to change the way that medical professionals talk about medical diseases, the way they put it in textbooks, the way they talk about it in lectures, but really trying to show people that at the core of medicine is really the people behind whatever pathology we're treating. And so we partnered with him to do the same thing for neonatology. And we called it A Life in Between because in our communication with families, we really had this sense that the NICU was kind of this place where they were in limbo. They had this part of their family, part of their heart that was in the NICU, but not quite home. And they had these two lives, their work, their other children at home, but their other, baby here in the NICU. And so we brought Rick in and we started photographing. And the first picture you see is one of our complex medically ill neonates. And we've started to pair pictures with kind of quotes about the NICU to try to describe these kind of parallels in our work. And in addition, we told you that when we started doing this in our unit, the families loved it, but the staff in the NICU also really loved it. And so we wanted to highlight not just the people that tend to get the most fanfare in medicine, but all of the people that work so hard to keep the NICU afloat. So we interviewed and we photographed the people who stock the shelves in our unit, and this is one of our team members in our unit. And so he comes in every day to make sure that the shelves are stocked. But what you might not know about Denton is he comes in every day and he sings to all of the older babies. And so we know that people who work in the NICU are just really invested in the babies and in their families in a way that we felt is exceptional. And so we really wanted to have a format to highlight that. And then in this next slide, you'll see we didn't want this to just be about our unit or our area where we work. We've invited people to submit their own photography. This is a set of twins reunited outside of the womb for the first time in the NICU, sent to us by a former NICU parent. And we're so grateful that other hospitals are now joining us. And then we will start photographing in those units later this year. The next steps are really including other units and including other formats of art. So you'll see here, this is big sister Chloe and little sister Ella. Mama's given permission for us to share this video.
I mean, that just makes your day, right?
It just makes your day. It just makes your day so sweet. And so the website is open for people to put submissions. And like I said, we've got videos. We're hoping that people will submit their own personal art, poetry, other things that help the people outside of the NICU really try to understand what's going on inside the NICU. And this is another opportunity where we're really looking for somebody in the community to get involved. This is such a passion project for us at the Incubator, and we're really looking for someone in the neonatal community who also shares this passion to take on this project, potentially study some of the effects of having humanities in the NICU on families and on healthcare professionals. So if you're interested, let us know.
Or if you know someone who might be a good fit for
or
this
if you
project.
know someone who might be a good fit.
Because we would like this project to get the dedication and attention it deserves.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing we will be talking about is the Delphi conference, which we're very excited about, that we had our first iteration a few months ago. It took place at the end of March at the Innovation Center here in South Florida, more specifically on the campus of the Nova Southeastern University. We were very happy with the way the conference turned out. It was a different kind of conference. I think it was a conference that was focusing on ideas, on different way of thinking about neonatology and neonatal innovation. We have speakers that came from around the world to share their ideas. And we even have unprecedented sort of sessions that we don't usually tend to see at medical conferences. Most notably, we had a pitch session where innovators, people with ideas or people with new devices, new technologies came to pitch their idea to our attendees and really either find collaboration, find support. And that was obviously one of the highlights of the conference. Another aspect of this was really the international nature of the conference, where we made a conscious decision to bring people from around the world to share both their ideas, but also their experiences. So this is a slide from the talk from Dr. Fumihiko Namba from Japan, who really came to share a little bit how their approach to neonatology and neonates has allowed them to have the amazing outcomes that they've reported in the literature. We also had roundtable discussions. This was a discussion with several stakeholders on how we can innovate in the delivery of healthcare. We had Ms. Kristen Daniels, an administrator for the HCA healthcare system down here in Florida. We had Dr. Thorsten Wallachek, who is a startup founder. We had Dr. Kristen Beam, who is a physician interested in AI. And it was very interesting to get the different perspectives from everyone in the community and have a 360-degree approach to some very thorny questions that we are all struggling with. One of the great features of the conference is that we invested a lot of resources in making sure that the conference was recorded in high quality.
Neonatal
and
transfusion
so,
medicine,
as you can see here,
focus on
these
the
videos are
in neonatal transfusion medicine.
finally being edited and will be released on YouTube in the coming days. Actually,
bag impact the outcomes in our preterm infants. We've done a lot of work, and I think we've learned a lot about when we should transfuse, at least using hemoglobin as a guide through trials by the NICHD neonatal research about, which is really.
Another aspect of the conference, which was quite unique, was the fact that we partnered with the TED conferences to have a special TEDx event called TEDx New River, where we tried to bring people from outside of neonatology to try to provide some inspiration for our audience about how we can break the mold and really aim high for the outcomes and the care that we deliver for our infants. Again, these talks were also recorded and are being uploaded to the TEDx website this week. You can find out more information about the TEDx event specifically at tedxnewriver.com. This is a sample of one of the videos that will be released this week. of a talk given by
As a
Jai
physician scientist,
Maswi.
I believe that the
And you can
clinical
see
data
that we're hoping
structures
that the
that we use
quality,
to
both
take care of
video and of the
patients
content,
are
is
fundamental
going to be something
barriers
that
to discovery.
will have an impact
I'm going to
for our
explain
community and that
why
we'll
I feel
find
this
valuable.
way, how these problems are being circumvented, and what I.
And so to wrap up this webinar, I think the big question is, how can you engage with the incubator? I think if there's anything that we've presented thus far that you think is resonating with either your mission or with the work that you're doing, then I think don't be shy and just reach out to us by email. I think you can send us an email and we can brainstorm ideas. We're a very collaborative group and we're really eager to highlight whoever is interested in making a difference for our patients and for our community. And it can be whether you would like to suggest someone to be on one of the podcasts, if you would like to suggest someone to start one of the new podcasts in other languages, whether it is someone that would like to participate in the development of the Neonatal Network app, whether it is someone who would like to take part in the NICU Life in Between project, or whether you would like to help plan the next Delphi conference, or you would like to suggest someone who would be an amazing speaker to promote on the Delphi stage. So send us an email. You can find all the information about the incubator on our website. Our website is the-incubator.org. And on there, you will find here, as you can see, the incubator, which will link you to all the episodes that we release on the incubator. You have an international section to find out more about each of the international podcasts that are there. You have a board review section for the Neonatology Review podcast, and you have the Delphi section as well with all the information about the Delphi conference. And this is what the incubator page looks like, and you'll see a bunch of little thumbnail for each of the episodes. Finally, you can follow us on Twitter. We're very active on social media. Our handle is straightforward. It's NICU Podcast. And you can see it here, and you can send us messages on social media. We respond fairly quickly. I hope that this webinar was helpful. I think the message that Daphna wanted to leave us with was that we're definitely more likely to improve the outcomes of baby and families when we do work together. So with that, I would like to thank you all for your time. I would like to thank Daphna and Rooney for partnering with me on this journey. I would like to thank Steve Leach and all the other people at Chiesi for their support and for helping make this vision possible. We would like to thank Miriam, and we'd like to thank all the collaborators that are working with us on all aspects of the incubator. So to all, thank you very much. And I think we can open the floor for questions. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions. We'd be happy to answer them one at a time.
Yeah, and as people start to feel brave enough to ask questions, I think people should know we are a very small but mighty team. I think sometimes people get the impression that we've got tons of people working with us, but in general, Ben and I answer every message and email personally. So definitely don't be shy about contacting us by email or on social media. We really want to hear from the community, and a lot of the additions we've made, the changes we've made have really come from requests from the neonatal community. Any questions?
And it doesn't have to be right this second. If you have questions and you would like to send them by email later on, that'd be fine too. We just want to make sure that we give an opportunity to anyone who has questions about maybe developing the incubator in their region, anything of that sort, to be to have a chance to speak. And Miriam is here as well. If anybody has any question for Miriam, please.
Yeah, I'm here if there's any questions, but I just want to point out again and emphasize that this has been one of the best experiences that I had. And for whoever is listening and whomever is considering joining this team, as someone who has recently joined this team, this has been so much fun, and everything was so smooth. You know, thinking about starting a podcast is actually really horrifying and really scary. It is really scary to think about all the technical stuff, recording, content, everything. But you know, with this team, everything is just extremely smooth and really easy. So if you want to join in the podcast, just just go for it.
Okay.
Thank you, Mariam. Okay. Well, I don't like meetings that linger. That's another thing about our team, is that when a meeting is over, a meeting is over. So I'm gonna give a few more seconds to anyone who would like to unmute themselves and ask any questions. But if there are no questions, then I think we will adjourn. And I wanted to make sure that people were aware. Actually, let me see if I can share this before we get off. Sorry. I am running a big production here with the whole YouTube stream and everything, but I'm getting there. I just wanted people to know that we have another webinar. I hope can you guys see this?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So we have another webinar that's going to be scheduled for Monday, June 12th. Maybe you didn't have a question today and you say, hey man, I forgot to ask them about this. You can always join us on June 12th. It's going to be at 8 p.m. US Eastern time. We're trying to find these odd times so that they work for people across the globe. Apologies in advance if this is a bit awkward, but we're really hoping that our friends in Asia can join us then. So yeah, feel free to join then. Feel free to contact us on social media. Feel free to find us on Twitter and social media. So yeah. Thank you, everybody.
And people are
joining.
welcome to share the flyer, and maybe you already listened to the podcast and you think your colleagues can benefit from that. You can hang it in your team rooms if you'd like, but certainly we're happy to hear from everybody. So please share.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, have a good rest of your day. Thank you for making the time. Daphna, Mariam, thank you for being on. Take care, everybody.
Bye everyone.